The grotto smells of death and rain. Anixis is much more familiar with the former, but it is the latter that sticks in the mind. Around her, a crack team of Anixis operatives begin their work. A chandler suborned from the Union, who sniffs the residue left behind by the weapon used here. A water-bearer, paid well for their silence, who led them safely here even though the area has been closed off. 3 Anixis cousins, each a master of a different forensic trade, utterly loyal only to her. And a handful of wax golems, which are already mapping out the entire grotto. She rubs her forehead in frustration. The heat of the weapon used here is blinding in the ghost field. But Lord Venkatesh was adamant that it must be investigated. The noble houses are fighting over whose jurisdiction this falls under, and so Anixis has used the confusion to its advantage. An old gambit, this, but one that her house has perfected. The tattoo on her forehead trembles. Each time it does so, she remembers the ritual through which it was applied. The barest of touches of something greater resonates in her. It is not wise to consider what this thing is, though in her mind she suspects blasphemy. That the so-called demon seemingly chained by her house is in fact merely a facet of the immortal emperor, a spy at the very heart of Iruvia. She has spoken to no one of this. The tattoo directs her towards the center of the grotto. The ghost field has been wiped clean by the weapon, but Arti is experienced and clever. She observes instead the difference between the ghost field and the material, sees ash and bone dust, the undeniable influence of divinity and death. She comes to her conclusion at the same time as 2 others of her team. It is the sharp breath of one and the near silence of the other that gives them away. "The weapon is holy fire, sir," the chandler says. "Summoned through sympathetic link, likely a powerful ritual," her cousin Brahmam adds. Someone in Udawasha has forged a link in a chain between the well and their own self. That chain has been wrapped around the god that lived here. A practitioner of great skill and no little power has managed to touch the divine, and perhaps do only what the great houses of Udawasha have done. Capture that power meant only for immortals. Whoever had done it had to have known the god intimately. Perhaps one of its acolytes, turning the tables on their patron. She would have to investigate this very carefully. We have to find whoever it was that did this. This is now of the utmost priority. Likely one of the previous cultists of the Royal Flight, the Kingfisher. We cannot permit anyone to know of this. Any evidence pointing to our conclusion is to be stored in our golems. Anything that we cannot take, we destroy. And we've roped this entire thing off, by order of the Lord Anixis himself, she says. Her people do not object, and do not bother to ask questions. Nothing lies beneath her feet but ash. She has already forgotten the smell of rain.